Hello, this is Georgina Rose, or Dot Darling, part-time esoteric content creator and part-time Scarlet Woman or Center of Pestilence. I'm not sure which of those sign-ons you guys prefer, so comment below, DM me, let me know which one you like. And welcome back to another Patreon exclusive video where I have the freedom to go a little bit deeper. First of all, I want to thank you guys so much for your continued support. It makes a huge difference. It's allowed me to get a light, to get this sort of aesthetic setup, and I'm able to devote more time to research because a decent percentage of what you guys give me does just go back into the channel and goes into getting nicer equipment. I'm trying to get a better camera currently. That's sort of what I'm saving up for. I have now a microphone to stream on Twitch and, of course, books for research. So it genuinely makes a difference. I don't just spend it all on nonsense. It really is used to help sort of promulgate Thelema, grow my work, and hopefully inspire more people to dive deeper into esoterica. But let's move beyond that because I know that's not really what you're here. I love you guys, but I don't think you want me to just gas you up for 10 minutes. But we're going to talk about the relationship between Thelema and paganism. So us Thelemites, we agree on absolutely nothing. I feel like it would actually take 93 Thelemites to screw in a light bulb successfully. A lot of us don't even agree on if Thelema is a religion, which personally I am a hardline agreeer in that. I'll get into that discourse really quickly. So some people say Thelema is not the same as a religion because it's not like how Christianity operates, but under the same logic you would say Buddhism is not a religion, and Buddhism obviously is. Religious scholars really debate on what defines religion, with some even going so far as to say there's such thing as civic religion, or that like sports teams or political affiliations can start acting like religion. Andrew Mark Henry of Religion for Breakfast has some really good videos on this. I really recommend his channel. I'm a big fan. But yeah, like what a religion is on its own is an interesting question because religion isn't just defined by belief a lot of the time. A lot of academics incorporate things like practice, ritualism, and community into what they define as a religion. So basically, definitions are a little more fluid than we think they are. Obviously, words have meaning and those are important, but they're a little more loose. So now let's answer the question, is Thelema pagan? And that, once again, is a question based on what you define your terms as. So originally, the word pagan comes from a somewhat derogatory term that was used to refer to the hill folk in Western Europe who refused to give up their pagan ways in favor of the rise of Christianity. So basically, a bunch of, as we would call them now, rednecks who didn't want to give up their traditions and their history and their cultural identity to follow in line with the Christian doctrine that was gaining popularity. So truthfully, the term pagan is sort of an other category. In modernity, paganism is typically used to describe the neo-pagan movements or, earth-based spirituality that incorporates polytheism. But in the traditional definition, that earth-based element is not there. Is Thelema earth-based is sort of the next question, to which I would say kind of. Thelema is not earth-based in that there's a veneration of the land spirits and the spirit of the place, but there is some paying attention to the cycles. If you look at the OTO and AA degree systems, you'll understand very quickly that those degrees are based on the evolution of the human throughout their lifespan. As well, Thelemites do celebrate the equinoxes and solstices of the year and parallel that with other aspects of their spirituality, such as the elements. If you don't know this, the equinoxes and solstices are seen as the feast for elements. So each solstice or equinox corresponds to an element, meaning that they do still hold value and the changing time of the year is still important within Thelema. As well, Thelema is sort of kind of polytheistic. So Thelema has an emanationist cosmology. As we know, the Tree of Life is stressed heavily. I have multiple videos on it, and basically what the Tree of Life posits is that God enters the world through a series of emanations moving downwards. This is a concept that's very closely tied to Platonism, which a lot of the Hermetic stuff, which in Thelema, we use Hermetic Kabbalah, though obviously that does have references to Jewish Kabbalah, is very tied to Neoplatonism. So there is a Platonic understanding in the way that emanation does appear within the Thelemic worldview, meaning that something has to emanate through all these spheres. The Jewish interpretation of this is that each sphere is not like a spirit, it's just sort of a reflection or a face of a singular God, which interestingly, that somewhat parallels the Hindu understanding of how deities emerge, as Hinduism is very much a soft polytheistic system. However, an interesting thing to note is that Kabbalah is not universally accepted by all Jews. A lot of Jewish people actually reject Kabbalah, with some seeing it as a heresy of polytheism. However, Thelema goes a step further. Thelema, of course, understands that the spears themselves are not spirits, but are sort of the lightning flash of divinity entering the world. But Thelema does attach specific spirits and specific states of spiritual evolution to the spears. Like Bina relates to Babylon and Saturn. So Thelema ties multiple god forms to a originally somewhat monotheistic emanation system. As well, when we talk about deity within Thelema, the term god form is typically used rather than just deity. I tend to use the term deity because the difference between a god form and a deity is kind of a semantics thing. It's more just a level of perspective. So you can easily argue that a god form in Thelema is sort of a face, which would be a somewhat monotheistic understanding. As well, Thelema does venerate a lot of solar things, which corresponds with the Abrahamic religions, which are primarily solar. However, in Thelema, we actually venerate these spirits, with Jack Parsons in particular being a devotee of Babylon, worshiping and honoring her. So that makes me think, in the monotheism-polytheism debate, Thelema is actually kind of centrist. So Thelema has this emanation system, which does relate to some monotheistic ideas, but Thelema has these god forms that can be worshipped. As well, the different types of these god forms are really important in the Thelemic understanding of the world. So a diagram that appears a lot in this Kabbalistic understanding is the point and the circle. Thelema takes the point and the circle, which is a very common way of explaining sort of how the world emerges, and makes it Hadit and Nuit. So Thelema takes this sort of monotheistic concepts and puts it through the lens of god forms, which in a way, since it is the two forces, the force and the counterforce interacting, is once again sort of a polytheistic take. Regardless, I would say Thelema, if you're going into then what type of polytheism would Thelema be, I would say it would be soft because it does have an emanation system. For those who don't know, hard polytheism is when you believe that every god is an independent spirit with complete agency, no relation to each other, they've all emerged, they're all separate, whereas soft polytheism is that they're essentially faces of the same thing. Meaning that I personally identify as a soft polytheist and would put Thelema in this category. So then, in a way, Thelema is kind of earth-based, sort of, and is semi-polytheistic, meaning that it would fit the definition of neo-pagan. As well, Gerald Gardner, the founder of Wicca, and Wicca is the largest neo-pagan religion, was a student under Aleister Crowley in the OTO, meaning that modern neo-paganism, which is the most common form of paganism, is connected back to Thelema. However, when we talk about what a Thelemite would look like as a pagan, it is different than anyone who has a revivalist or reconstructionist understanding of paganism, which is essentially where you are trying to recreate, revive, and bring back the traditions of the pre-Christian European world, because Thelema is not pre-Christian. Thelema, in a way, is a path forward. It's not Abrahamic old school stuff, it's not pagan old school stuff, it's syncretizing them into a synergy, and through that finding the way forward. Aleister Crowley was such a Libra, and I mean that in like a way that this is actually relevant, because the Libra understanding is very much things that are opposed coming together and finding synergy there. Aleister Crowley believed that through smashing the force and the counterforce, which create the universe, because on the Tree of Life we have the pillar of mercy, pillar of severity, that is the force, counterforce. By smashing those together and finding equilibrium, if you're thinking in terms of masculine, feminine to androgyne, and that would be the perfected form, the way that it fully exists, which if we look at the Tree of Life once again, you will notice Malkut, the plane that we exist on, is in the center, meaning that it is the merging of the force and the counterforce into equilibrium. So essentially, Thelema is kind of both. Thelema is not a religion of the past, but a religion of the future. Because Thelema does not reject the past, does not see it as flawed or wrong, but it understands that to create the ideal religion, we can understand that there is wisdom in multiple traditions. There is wisdom in the monotheistic world, there is wisdom in the polytheistic world, and through bringing them together into one understanding, we can see the true wisdom of the world. In a way, Thelema almost veers into perennialist territory sometimes, because Thelema does see that a lot of religions and cultures have had interesting ideas, and that it's a very arrogant assumption to assume that only one path, only one culture could have insight into the beautiful mysteries that is divinity. So in a way, is Thelema pagan? Kind of. Depends on your definition. Is Thelema trying to revive some ancient European religion? No. Wicca, which came out of Thelema, is definitely attempting to do that as it tries to revive the idea of the Western European witch cult. But Thelema itself, kind of in the middle. Thelema is, in a weird way, like the centrist answer to these questions, because Thelema is kind of polytheistic, but it's still coming from a singularity or a monad, so it's like, you know, Thelema's somewhere. Also, I used a lot of terms in this video. If you want my next month Patreon video talking about any of these concepts, let me know. Thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate it. I'd say like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell, and you'll meet your holy guardian angel in 93 days. But I'm assuming if you're a patron, you've already done at least one of those things. So your HGA is coming soon. It just got delayed. You know, like you know how there's been like supply chain issues around the US? Because I'm an American. There's been supply chain issues in the HGA factory, so we got to get that worked out. But for real, thank you guys for supporting me. I really hope this video was helpful and useful, and if you have any questions, you can always ask me in the Discord, because I'd love to answer you guys' questions. Just make sure you do it in the #AskGeorgina channel, and I'll get back to you. Also, a reminder, if you're a higher tier patron, you have to DM me to set up your meeting or get your herbal stuff. Like, you have to DM me and talk to me about it, because I'm very disorganized, and that makes my life easier. And also, when it comes to those things, I have to talk to you before we do it anyway, because we need to figure out your times, your needs, etc. So if you are in a high tier, please shoot me a DM. If not, thank you so much for supporting me, and happy December and happy Yuletide. I made the ritual guide all about Yule. It's actually one of my favorite holidays. So I really hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you have a lovely day, night, afternoon, mid-morning, or whatever time it is wherever you are. Bye.